Good evening, everybody. We're still here. The weather has finally calmed down. We've had several intermittent showers, but not too many, thankfully. The air pressure is going up, which is a good sign. It's about 934.5, around about that. So it's definitely getting better. For the nervous viewer, David, anyone else who's nervous, this trip has been a very, very good example of why you need to keep a very cool, calm head, even when things are not going brilliantly. You have to move your tent. It's not just a tarp that I had to move twice. You could very well have a tent or something like that. Now, if you have a tent and the wind starts moving in an odd direction, it may very well be that you need to get out and move your tent. It's not just that I'm using a Trailstar tarp which doesn't have a door. You could be in a tent in terrible, terrible weather conditions and your tent could be getting squashed or flattened. You may have to get out calmly but quickly and rearrange things. Now, if you have to do that, like I did here, in some ways, given that I simply had to move a door from behind to sort of behind you to in front of you, that was relatively easy, even though the conditions were pretty horrible. If you're in a tent, you're actually potentially worse off, because if you're in a tent and the wind changes direction and the tent is being bowed in at the side on you, you potentially have to unpeg the entire tent, not just 2 or 3 pegs like I had to do here, and move your tent 90 degrees. If you have to do that, then you have to do that, and you keep calm. You just get out and try to leave inside the tent or the tarp as much of your dry stuff as possible. Because what you don't want to be doing is thinking, oh, I've got these layers on, I'm going to get cold if I go outside. If you go outside wearing all or much of your dry stuff, that one thing is what will completely, potentially ruin your trip. It's better to do what I did very calmly and go out almost naked with your bits hanging out, literally. And I literally just had my top on and nothing else, nothing at all. No shoes, no undies, nothing. Because it was effectively that, or I went out wearing my nightwear clothing. Now, if I'd have gone out wearing my nightwear clothing, thinking that it would keep me warm for 2 or 3 minutes that it took, or 5 minutes, to rearrange the shelter, then every single thing that I was potentially wearing inside would have been compromised, and I would have been soaked, and every single item of clothing that I was wearing would have been soaked. If you have to go out butt naked, go out butt naked. Get your shelter fixed and sorted out, because that is your shelter and that is the most important thing, because without that you're completely exposed. pardon the expression. Once you've got your shelter sorted, fixed down properly and concentrate, go around it 2 or 3 times if necessary, even when I thought I had every single peg fixed properly. After 2 sweeps, I went around a 3rd time and I found 2 pegs that I'd not put in properly. So give your shelter a proper, at least a 3rd sweep, and check every single peg is tight. Even if you're starting to get very cold and very wet and you're almost completely naked. Obviously, potentially we don't want you doing this when it's 0 or something like that, but use a bit of common sense. Once I checked everything was tight, I got back inside calmly. The only thing that I had on was my long sleeve merino top. I took it off. It was soaked. It is still soaked. It's now useless. I can't do anything with it now. I've got no chance of drying it out here. It's hanging up. Actually, it's not that bad. It might even be potentially dry in the morning. I don't know, but it's hanging up there with my trousers, which still haven't dried out. The most annoying casualty is my underwear, because I had dried out my underwear almost completely, and I was quite comfortably sitting here just about to make a cup of tea and my underwear fell in my teapot. So my underwear got soaked again. It's a good job I brought 2 towels with me because I've used them both. But effectively I got into the shelter, my sleeping bag was dry, I'd managed to protect. That's effectively the next most important thing, is your sleeping bag after your shelter. I'd managed to keep the sleeping bag dry, because basically I just pushed the sleeping bag over to one side and just ran outside naked, bits flowing around, bits flailing around in the wind. What choice did I have? I got back inside, took my wet merino off. Luckily, it's not that cold. It's cold, but it's not that cold. The first thing I did was dry my feet off. Once my feet were dry, I put socks on. The next thing I did was I found my t-shirt and I put my t-shirt on, because my feet were the coldest thing, because they'd been naked or barefoot walking in all the slushy water around here, which is pretty chilly. The next thing I did was protect my core. I put my t-shirt on. Then I put my fleece on. And after putting my fleece on, remember my wind shirt, which at the time was wet, thankfully it's since dried, I put my insulated jacket on. I then put my leggings on. The leggings was the last thing to go on, because your legs are like the strongest part. They rarely get so cold that you need to worry about them too much early on. So I just wanted to protect my feet because they were cold and wet. They were the coldest. So I protected them first, and then I protected everything else on the top and put my hat on, protected my head. I got inside the sleeping bag, started warming up, made a cup of tea. And it was still hammering it down while all of this was going on. And I was thinking, I hope to God that all my pegs hold. And it was a little bit nerve-wracking even for me. even with my experience, I was a little bit nervous because I was looking at the barometer and I could see that it was taking a bit of a nosedive down. So I was very conscious of the fact that I was waiting for it to start to improve, which it did, thankfully, quite quickly. As soon as the weather cleared, in between showers, because the showers kept coming and going, I went out barefoot again, but this time I kept all my clothing on because it was between showers. But I didn't want to waste time putting shoes on in case another shower came down quickly. So I went out barefoot and just rearranged a couple of pegs that just needed a little tweak after my initial tweak earlier on. Once I did that, I came back in, dried my feet off again, put my socks back on again because they were literally the only thing I took off that time. Got back into the sleeping bag and just kept half of an eye on the barometer, which was going up, and half an eye on my phone. There is no signal, I wasn't keeping an eye on for that, but watching a film and distracting myself from the goings on. And that's it. I do have wet clothing. My trousers are still damp from when I got here, but realistically, by the time I put them on tomorrow, they will have dried out sufficiently. My underwear, I think they're pretty wet, but they might have dried out enough by tomorrow. I will wear my damp clothing and I will keep my dry clothing in the dry bag so that when I get back to the car, the chances are that as long as it doesn't rain too much, that by the time I get back to the car, the act of walking, like last time, will actually dry my clothing out. If perchance it doesn't and I get wet by the time I get back to the car, because stupidly I didn't put spare clothing in the car, well, apart from underwear, then I will have spare leggings, although I must admit these leggings I wouldn't want to be walking around without trousers, to be honest, but I do have leggings that I can at least drive in, and I have a fleece and a t-shirt, all of which, if I have to, I can put on in the car when I get back to the car. The same if I was going from one camp to another camp. I've just stayed here, I haven't moved, and frankly I don't think many people would have moved in the weather that it's been like here. I think most people would have just stayed in camp, seen the weather through, and then got going on to their next camp or headed back home, the same as me, which is my plan to head back tomorrow anyway. So I just wanted to do this as a separate video, probably just as a part, something or other, that, you know, even when all hell lets loose, just stay calm, relaxed, focused, get out, do what you need to do, quickly but efficiently but carefully, and check everything, because what you definitely don't want to do is to get out, fix all your pegs or think you fixed them all, get back in again, dry out, get inside the sleeping bag, and then another peg goes because you didn't check it properly. So always keep a very close eye on what you're doing. And if you do that, you will be a safe, happy, dry camper. Good luck.